Welcome in to the Arrowhead Pride Rapid Reaction Show. I am Steven Serda, joined as always by my guy Rocky Magana, our friend Kramer Sansone in the background, helping us keep this thing moving. And man, that was a shit performance, Rocky. I normally try not to let my anger get the best of me on these things. I normally try to keep it professional, but man, everything was ass today for the Kansas City Chiefs as they fall to the Indianapolis Colts 20-17, and just a total and complete disaster of a game from the Chiefs when this Colts team we know is not a good football team. I get that it's their home opener. Frank Reich, Matt Ryan, like backs to the wall. There's been infighting with Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay because of how bad they've been through the first 2 weeks of the season. And it just did not seem like the Chiefs were prepared to take on the Indianapolis Colts today in their home opener in week 3 of the NFL season. And it showed specifically through special teams, but really, for the most part, it was an all-around terrible performance, aside from some moments from the defense. But ultimately, the defense did cost them at the end of the game, giving up that late touchdown score to rookie Jelani Woods. It was his second of the day. I'll kick it to you, Rocky. This was just about as bad as it's going to get from the Kansas City Chiefs, I would have to imagine.
F&A, Serda, freaking A. I mean, it had to be the Colts too, right? And in my post-game prediction, I said the Chiefs are saying that they're not looking past the Colts and that they're gearing up for this game, which tells me that I think they're probably looking past the Colts because that just seems how it is, and that's exactly how it looked today. They showed up completely unprepared. Uncle Dave needs to answer for his special teams unit. I mean, we're talking like I'm not saying heads got to roll, but you got to stand and you got to answer some questions like a man because your team across the board did not perform today, especially in special teams unit. And I see people saying Chris Jones cost us the game. Chris Jones was a bonehead and made a mistake that could have literally ended this game, but he didn't cost us the game. I'll tell you who cost us the game. Special teams cost us the game. Eric Bieniemy cost us the game. Patrick Mahomes cost us the game. Andy Reid cost us the game. The defense not getting a stop late in the fourth quarter cost us the game. This was a complete team loss from top to bottom where the Chiefs just did not show up to perform today. They're a better team than what they showed today. I'm not pushing the panic button on the season by any means, but this was a garbage performance by a team that should be ashamed of themselves today.
So our friend from the Great British Chief Show, Tom Childs, just tweeted out that was a peak Alex Andy era kind of football game today. And I don't think I could put it better than that. Like, that's what it reminded me of, right? Like the Alex Smith era, Andy Reid Chiefs, where you understand you're good, but occasionally you have these kinds of games where you just look disorganized. You have penalties, you have miscues all over the place. The offense can't ever get anything going. And it was just a bad performance. And I want to start with the missed field goal in the fourth quarter of this game. Matt Amendola, backup kicker, obviously. I'm at the point where I'm just put Justin Reed back in as the kicker. I would have to assume Matt Amendola is not going to be a Chief come about Tuesday of this week. And hopefully Harrison Butker's healthy enough to get back on the field for them. But it comes down to the special teams decisions and the lack of aggressiveness from the Chiefs throughout the football game. That field goal, that 34-yard missed field goal with 8:41 left in the fourth quarter, Chiefs did not get the ball back until 18 seconds left in the game after that. The Colts put together a long drive where they were just kind of picking apart the defense. You mentioned the Chris Jones boneheaded penalty, and it was just a disaster. This falls on Andy Reid. I know Dave Tobe had a really, really bad day, and Eric Bieniemy didn't have a great day, and it was just an all-around bad performance from basically every unit on the Chiefs except for the defense at moments, but even they couldn't hold up there at the end. I don't understand, if you're Andy Reid, how you go for that field goal after all of the special teams blunders that we saw today with missing a PAT. For some reason, you dial up a fake punt after Sky Moore fumbles the opening punt return. Then on the next play, just looks scared of the football and gets them pinned at the 1 yard line. It's I think back to last season, like the playoff losses for the Green Bay Packers and what a disaster their special teams were. Like their special teams literally cost them a playoff win last year, cost them a playoff loss. And that's like what this was today. It was all around, but the special teams were the glaring thing where the special teams, every time they took the field today, they did something negative and put you in a bad position. And that's why I can't forgive going for that field goal there. You got to just leave Mahomes out there and you got to go for it, because going for that field goal after your kicker's already missed a PAT, he's a backup kicker. We know that. After the special teams has already gotten penalties and been a complete and total disorganized disaster, how do you have the confidence? And after you miss the fake punt, how do you have the confidence to roll them out there and try to go for that field goal? It's unbelievable. I can't believe the decision making that went into that.
You today fielded a special teams unit that has shown you all day long that they were the 32nd best special teams unit playing football today. And you had arguably the best football player in the NFL. Even Patrick Mahomes on his worst day is still better than 90% of quarterbacks in the NFL. And you had the worst special teams unit today. And so you decide to bet on the worst special teams unit instead of one of the best players in the history of the game and just let him go out there and make a play. You paid Pat to win you football games. Let him go out there and win you the football game, Andy. Like, you're overthinking it. You get conservative at times and it kills you. Like, oh my gosh, you got Patrick Mahomes. Use Patrick Mahomes, for God's sakes. We are begging you.
Yeah, it was just an ugly, ugly football game from the Kansas City Chiefs. And listen, it's not the end of the world. We're only in week 3 of the NFL season. The Chiefs are 2-1. They've already got a huge win over the Los Angeles Chargers under their belt. But this is a game under no circumstance the Kansas City Chiefs should have lost. Like, we saw the pressure that they were putting on Matt Ryan and the issues that they were having, trying to slow this Chiefs defensive line all throughout the day. And at the end of the day, the Chiefs defense couldn't hold up. But I just don't think that the offense and the special teams did anything throughout the entire game to do them really any kind of favors. Like, this was just a bad football game from the Kansas City Chiefs. And it falls on Andy Reid. It falls on Eric Bieniemy. It falls on Dave Toub. And I'm not even going to put that much of it on Spags, because I thought Spags actually called a pretty good game for the most part. Like, it sucks that they couldn't hold up and stop the Colts at the end of the football game, but neither of the other units did anything to help the Kansas City Chiefs today. It's just one of those games where I still think the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the AFC. I still think they're near the top. I still think that they have Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to win you a ton of football games. But this is just a game you cannot lose. That is an inferior opponent. Like, I'm sorry to all the Indianapolis Colts fans out there, but I did interviews this week with people who cover the Colts full time, and they were all like, it's bad. They're not a good football team. This is a team we thought was going to win the division, and they are not good. The Chiefs have absolutely no business losing this football game today.
No, the Colts aren't good. The Colts aren't good at all. This looked like one of those games that we used to lose to the Colts in the playoffs year after year after year, except for those were good Colts teams. And this is a really, 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 really bad Colts team against what's supposed to be a good Chiefs team. And the only 2 bright spots today were the pass rush that really, really dominated the line of scrimmage all day long. And then also Juju Smith-Schuster, when he was given the opportunity, made plays time after time after time on short yardage throws in the flats, but they decided just to only throw to him 7 times. If you throw the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster twice as much, then the offense looks a lot different. They're playing cover 4 over the top, trying to take away the big play, but you're still not taking what's underneath. Like you didn't learn anything against the Bengals, apparently, because the underneath stuff was open all day long. You saw them in the second half. They came out and started attacking the flats, and that's when they had some success. They stop attacking the flats, and they stall out again. Like, it's not rocket science. Take what's available and move the chains, for God's sakes.
So let's stick with the offense here. And, I'm not going to make any excuses for this performance. I have higher expectations for this Chiefs offense, and I think they should have absolutely dominated this Colts defense that has been one of the worst defenses in the NFL through 2 weeks. I mean, they're giving up one of the highest completion percentages in the league, and they played Trevor Lawrence and Davis Mills in the first 2 weeks. And for the Chiefs to struggle this bad offensively, it just makes me question how much their heads were really in this football game, or if maybe they were playing a little bit too much into the, we're just going to dominate them and not take this game that seriously. They just struggled all day. And I want to talk about the wide receivers because you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster, who wound up having a nice day, helped by that big 50-yard gain. But when do we need to start really worrying about this Chiefs wide receiver core? Because I know Justin Watson has had the flashes so far in the first couple of weeks, and he's a fine player, making some deep down the field plays for the Chiefs. McColl's been involved quite a bit more this season, but he was clearly banged up today. That heel injury was obviously bothering him multiple times during the game. He'd get hit and go down and need to come out of the football game. So he's clearly not 100% today. But through 3 weeks now, the Chiefs only have 2 wide receiver touchdowns on the season. And we have not seen a single one of them really step up and really widen the gap as I am the clear top option for Patrick Mahomes when I can't go to Travis Kelce. That's the guy that I'm looking for. And I guess it is Juju through 3 games, and that's who we assume that it's going to be. But I'm starting to get worried about the wide receivers. We need more consistency from that group of players. And I do think they've got some depth there, but we need some guys to make some separation and start actually making some plays, because we can't keep talking about this every week where it's just, well, they're still learning and they're still getting better and they'll still figure things out. And Mahomes is going to make plays. We need somebody to step up here. And I don't know if they have that guy now through 3 weeks into the NFL season.
I mean, Hardman was injured. He's not 100%. Sky Moore obviously is still learning the playbook and doesn't have a comprehension of the offense, because otherwise in the past, when a player makes a big mistake like that, Andy Reid goes to them almost immediately to try to get their confidence back. And the fact that he didn't go to Sky Moore at all today tells me that Sky Moore doesn't have the comprehension of the offense that we would like for him to have, which makes sense because he is a rookie and it's a hard offense to learn. And I get all that. Now, the unforgivable thing is that MVS and Patrick Mahomes seem to have zero chemistry whatsoever. And MVS was supposed to be the deep threat that was supposed to help take away what we lost in Tyreek. And they are on completely opposite pages. I don't know if they need to get on the practice field and just work on rep after rep after rep together, or go out to dinner, go to the club, just make some memories together as friends or something, because they look like they've never met each other or played football together whenever they're trying to play pass and catch out there on the field. MVS is just a complete non-factor at this point in the offense. And the Chiefs can't have that, especially when McColl's out injured. I mean, the offense just doesn't work if he's not out there. If they're not going to have any chemistry.
And no disrespect to MVS, but going into the season, I know there was the early training camp OTA hype around his connection with Mahomes, but I was always cautious on assuming that MVS was going to, take this giant leap forward. We saw what he was in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. He is just a dude. He is fast and he is long and he's got a lot of length and he can make some explosive plays down the field. But he never did that with any level of consistency in Green Bay. And now we're seeing it here in Kansas City. That's just who MVS is, in my opinion. Now, I always assumed the preseason training camp hype around Sky Moore and, the fantasy people who are out there saying Sky Moore, number 1 wide receiver in a Patrick Mahomes led offense, go get him right now in your fantasy lineups. I was sitting here saying the entire time, slow down on Sky Moore, slow down on Sky Moore. Andy Reid doesn't do this with rookie wide receivers. Andy Reid's not just going to put Sky Moore out there for 90% of the snaps to start the season. And now, I expected him to get a little bit more run in the offense than we've seen through 3 weeks. I'm a little bit worried about that, but I think that's exactly what you're talking about, Rocky, is that he's taking time to pick up the offense and they're not going to rush him into it, because even when Tyreek Hill was a rookie, he was making so many of his plays on special teams and kind of designed plays just to get the ball in his hands. We haven't even really seen that with Sky yet. And I don't think that says that much about Sky, other than he's still trying to learn and he's still trying to find ways that he can get involved with the Chiefs offense. But It's an issue right now. Like they need somebody else to step up. And obviously, and Kramer, you can throw this up in the background. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time playing highlights from this contest, but Travis Kelce did put together another good game, had multiple key big time plays, and has the touchdown early in the game. And Travis Kelce, still an absolute monster, still a Hall of Fame caliber tight end. But through 3 games, I'm not really feeling confident in any other pass catcher besides Kelce.
No, and I think if you honest and you talk to Kelsey today, he would say that he had 2 or 3 plays that the Chiefs needed that he didn't make. I mean, he had a couple crucial drops in this game, and he's still a Hall of Famer. He's still probably the best tight end to ever play the game, but he's his own biggest critic, and he will tell you that there was a couple really big catches that he didn't make today. Other than that, I mean, you can't put it all on Kelsey because he's the only person who really did anything in the passing game. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, Kelsey's still that dude. He's the only person that you don't worry about moving forward, honestly.
Well, and I'm at a point now too where I'm feeling like Clyde is your most reliable number 2 option on offense through the first 3 weeks of the season, and we've talked about Clyde a ton. I still think this is maybe the healthiest that we've seen Clyde so far in his NFL career. This stretch that he's on right now, and he made plays again today. He's still getting involved in the passing game, and the Chiefs are still rotating a lot of running backs, so it's not like Clyde's out there getting 85% of the snaps or something. They're still working Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco in. But when Clyde has had his number called so far this season, Clyde has managed to make plays for the Chiefs, and he's still been impressive. So I love seeing this from Clyde, and I think that there's been a lot of discussion about like he can't keep up this level of efficiency on the limited amount of touches that he's had so far this season, but he's done it in 3 straight games now. And so I feel like as long as they're going to manufacture stuff for Clyde and he continues to play like this and stay healthy, I feel like he's the most reliable option on offense outside of Travis Kelce now.
I mean, he's shown himself to be, and I think a lot of it is because Clyde knows that there's people nipping at his heels and that he has to go out there and perform every single time he touches the ball, and that's good. There should be competition out there, and the players should feel like their jobs are on the line if they don't perform. And I think Clyde has been amazing. Clyde has surprised the crap out of me, through the first 3 weeks. The question with him is hopefully he just stays healthy, because otherwise he's shown himself, in the offense to be a dynamic weapon so far and a player who you can rely on. One thing one of the biggest issues that almost bit the Chiefs again today was the inability to convert on 3rd and short, again. And aside from Clyde, like the question I have for you, Steven, is on 3rd and 1, why don't you just go to Michael Burton every single time? What's one time when it was 3rd and 1 that Michael Burton didn't convert?
I agree.
Why not?
I think today, especially, it just goes back to, man, this just wasn't Andy Reid's best performance. It wasn't Eric Bieniemy's best performance, and the down and short issues that they're having, like those go back to last season, and it doesn't look like it's gotten better this season so far. And so that's going to continue to be an issue. I know Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes were asked about like quarterback sneaks this week, and Mahomes said, I want to dust it off. I want to bring it back. And Andy Reid said, he's asked me about it, and was just like, yeah, we're not going to do it. Like it's just not something that we're going to do. And it's something that Andy Reid hasn't done since Mahomes had that knee injury against the Broncos on a quarterback sneak in 2019. So I don't blame the Chiefs for doing that, but I do think that it's been an issue with not being able to use Mahomes in that way, and them trying to overcomplicate things in those situations where to me, like what you're saying, Rocky, is it's simple. Just give Michael Burton the ball and let him get it, because Clyde's not necessarily that kind of guy. You don't really have another running back. Maybe it's Pacheco, but we haven't seen that from him so far, like in the limited touches that he's gotten. And so the down and distance, short yardage plays are still an issue that's plaguing this offense. And I don't really know how they're going to be able to fix that, but we're running long because we're frustrated and we're venting. And I'm glad you guys are hanging out with us. We're not trying to be totally negative on tonight's show, but it's a very frustrating football game. But I do want to talk about the defense really quick, because the defense was the one bright spot in a game that, we could sit here and talk for hours about how bad the offense and how bad the special teams were, but the defense did make enough plays despite giving up that late fourth quarter touchdown that inevitably cost you the game. I don't think that should be totally held against the defense, because they did enough throughout the game to win this football game. The offense came up short, and the special teams were just a complete and total disaster. But in the absence of Willie Gay, which I was worried about going against this Colts team that likes to use Nyheim Hines in the passing game a lot, and he can be an explosive pass catcher for them out of the backfield because they don't use Jonathan Taylor a ton that way. But L'Jarius Sneed had a monster game. Nick Bolton had a monster game. Carlos Dunlap had a monster game. Darius Harris had a monster game stepping in for Willie Gay. Like, Darius Harris has some deficiencies, and he has some things about his game that you're going to be able to exploit the way that you can exploit things with Willie Gay. But that's why Darius Harris is a backup. He was a menace in the run game today. He had multiple big time tackles. So I think you have to be very happy with the performance that you got from Darius Harris. And we saw those other playmakers, Sneed, Dunlap, Bolton, like, we saw those guys step up and make big time plays when you needed them to. And I think the defense generally did do enough, other than that late fourth quarter touchdown drive, which, again, it was a nice drive by the Colts. They just picked them apart and they bled the entire clock. Like, they were not in any hurry. I told you the Chiefs missed that field goal with 8:41 left in the game, and they didn't get the ball back until there was 18 seconds left. Like, that's how long that drive was by the Indianapolis Colts. But I don't think we should pin that on the defense when they were the best unit on the football field today for the Chiefs.
I mean, yeah, through 3.5 quarters, they dominated the Colts offense. I mean, you go down the list of the defensive starters today, and every single person made a play. I mean, Frank Clark had a sack. Chris Jones, despite the bonehead penalty, was a wrecking force in the middle, who just dominated the Colts offensive line. Like you said, Nick Bolton, I mean, he had that crucial fourth down stop. He had a sack. Spags actually decided to dial up heat, with a linebacker for a change, and it worked. You got Sneed, you got Thornhill. I mean, literally, you go down the line of every single offensive starter, and they all made amazing plays. Dunlap and Harris seemed to be comboing on play after play after play in the second half, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Like, this defensive performance up until the end was a joy to watch. Like, as bad and as hard it was to watch the offense, it was fun to watch the defense today. The offense and the special teams just kept putting them in terrible positions. I mean, that first touchdown, after that muff punt, the defense goes out there and gets off the field fast, and you just totally screw them over by putting them, right there inside of the 10.
Yeah, I think the defense did enough today, and it really sucks that we're not going to see Willie Gay for the next month, because I wanted to see what this defense continued to look like. And right now, through 3 games, Rocky, I feel like the defense is the most consistent part of this football team at the moment. And that's not a great situation to be in, but at least something is working, and there's something to feel positive about. And I do think, for the most part, you should feel positive about the performance you saw from the Chiefs defense, especially with that Willie Gay, who I think has been really, really important to what they've done so far this season. Before we get to your guys' reactions from the game, and again, you can tweet at us if you'd like, hashtag AP Rapid Reaction Show. We got to talk about the offensive line for a second. It's been, I feel like, kind of flown under the radar a little bit through the first 2 weeks, because you dominate the Cardinals week 1, and you pull off a big game against the Chargers, primetime, short week. And, and you're going against Bosa and Mac in that dominant pass rush. And you say, like, well, we just had to figure it out against them, because that pass rush is going to dominate every offensive line that they play. But through 3 games, I feel pretty confident in saying that the Chiefs offensive line is a problem so far. Trey Smith has struggled a little bit, and I still think that Trey Smith is a stud offensive guard, but he is kind of banged up right now, still dealing with that ankle injury. He's playing through it, but I think it's safe to say that he's maybe not 100%, and there's only so much Tooney and Creed can do from the interior. Andrew Wiley did leave the game for a little bit, but he wound up coming back in for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Andrew Wiley has not been particularly good, and Orlando Brown Jr. has not been good in the passing game at all. He has not been good pass blocking this season. And for a guy that's looking to be paid like he's one of the highest paid left tackles in football, so far he has not been impressive. And he does not look like he should be getting paid the contract that the Chiefs even offered him, let alone one of the 3 highest paid left tackles in football. Like, I'm legitimately starting to get worried about this offensive line because we're seeing Patrick Mahomes under duress each and every week now.
I mean, it literally, like, did Lawrence Taylor quantum leap into Yannick Ngakwe's body today? And just like, I mean, because Orlando Brown Jr. wants to get paid like he's the best tackle to ever play football. And he let a guy who was a middle of the pack, good pass rusher, make him look like a fool today. Like, it wasn't that he got beat from time to time. He got beat down today by the Colts edge rushers. And the Colts don't have great edge rushers. They're fine. They're good. Like, Kwity Paye is fine. Yannick Ngakoue is fine. But if you want to be what's considered the best offensive line in football, like the Chiefs have kind of touted with their rebuild, then you got to be able to handle these guys. And through 3 games, we've said, oh, yeah, well, the Chiefs got beat by the pass rush. But like you said, we had, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, and these guys are all world talents and blah, blah, blah. But what about you? You're supposed to be an all world talent on the offensive line also. Like, that's what you've been building yourself as this whole time. Then stop the guy. Like, it's that simple. You got the best quarterback in football. Keep him upright. Don't let him get chased down from behind and hit from behind and make us hold our breath 13 times a game. Like, it's like, I'm sorry, Orlando Brown, but you're not athletic enough. Like, you're getting beat. You're getting beat around the edge every single time. Your kick step doesn't get back fast enough, and you get out of position. You're too long and tall, and you bend over too much. Like, I know you wanna be the best left tackle in football, but I want to win the slam dunk competition in the NBA. I can't even touch the net, Steven. And I know that about myself. To thy own self be true, man. Like, know who you are. You're not that guy. You haven't shown yourself to be that guy. And I'm talking out of emotion a lot here, but through 3 weeks, show me otherwise. That's the whole thing. If what I'm saying is not true, then go out there and show something else.
The most worrisome part about this offensive line so far this season is that we're seeing out of the gate they're struggling. Like, it's not just, late into fourth quarters where you're tired and you're banged up from an entire NFL contest. Patrick Mahomes was under pressure on the very first offensive snap of the game and was under pressure pretty much the entire game. Like, he was having to break the pocket a ton today and escape the pocket and try to get outside and make plays because he's just getting all kinds of pressure put on him. And, Kwity Paye and Yannick Ngakoue and DeForest Buckner, like, those are nice players, but like, this pass rush wasn't dominating anybody in the first 2 weeks of the season. And they're going up against offensive lines that aren't very good in Houston and Jacksonville. Like, this team got blanked in Jacksonville last week, and Jacksonville's offensive line's not exactly the Eagles' offensive line or something like that. So them putting this much pressure on Patrick Mahomes is very worrisome. It's very worrisome for this offensive line as a whole, because I do not think that we looked at this unit as a cornerstone strength of the team. And through 3 games, I don't think they've been that. I don't think they've been close to that through 3 games. And so it's an issue. And, I don't know how you fix that if you're playing this poorly at the beginning of the season. Maybe there's some injuries. Maybe guys are a little bit more banged up than we know about because the Chiefs are kind of secretive about that stuff. But they just have not been good so far this season. And so, yeah, it is something that we absolutely need to worry about. And we've got a large enough sample size at this point to say that it's an issue. And I think it's something that can continue to be an issue for the Chiefs throughout the rest of the regular season. And I do want to mention again that the Buffalo Bills did lose to the Miami Dolphins. So, and Buffalo, just their defense was absolutely decimated by injuries this week. Like, they were missing like half their defensive starters. So I still think that the Bills are probably the top of the AFC. But as of right now, Rocky, the Miami Dolphins are the only undefeated team in the AFC after today's game. So this is not where we thought we'd be. I don't think. I don't think that we thought they would lose this week 3 contest to the Indianapolis Colts. But they did, and it was an ugly game. So let's get to your guys' reactions from this Kansas City Chiefs game. We put it out on Twitter each and every home game, and we want to try to get some of your guys' reactions into the post game show. This is from JB Bunch 630. Offense doesn't seem right. Orlando Brown doesn't look good today. Rocky, we just talked about it. I think there's some offensive issues that you need to address, and I think the offensive line is a problem so far this season.
Yeah, I think the one thing that kind of played into it a little bit is that they did play the Jags last week, and Doug Peterson does run a similar offense to Andy Reid. So basically, the Colts defense got back-to-back looks, at the same offense, and you're always going to do better on the test the second time.
From at Devin Hoover 11, play calling questionable for the second week in a row. We're scared of the Colts defensive line when in striking distance before half. This is one of the easier defensive matchups we've had. I agree. On paper, this should have been a cakewalk offensive performance for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's well documented how much Patrick Mahomes shreds Gus Bradley's defense, and I don't think that the Colts really made any significant adjustments in the way that they chose to play the Chiefs today. It's just that the difference here between the first 2 weeks of the season for the Colts is that they play so much zone and rely so heavily on their guys up front to get pressure that when they get pressure, the defense actually kind of works. And the defensive line got pressure today, so their secondary looked better as a result of it. That's a Gus Bradley defense, right? So I guess we didn't actually talk about this very much, Rocky, and Patrick Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy getting into it right before halftime. And we talked about it a little bit in our group chat on the conservative play calling, I guess, if you want to call it that, with Andy Reid. I do think it's an issue that has plagued the Chiefs for a long time here. Andy Reid, for some reason, doesn't like pushing the envelope right before half. Like, he does it. It seems like I can think of like a dozen times over the last couple of seasons where it's like, what are we doing? Call a timeout, conserve time before the half and get the ball back. You can go score, and then you get the ball back after the break and you could score again. And then all of a sudden you're up by 3 scores. Like, what are we doing here? Andy Reid just seems to never do it. And the Chiefs got the ball back right before the half. They decide to dial up a couple of deep throws that don't complete. And then there's 20 seconds left, and they decide to run the ball, needing 20 yards to pick up a first down and run the clock out just to go to the break. And Patrick Mahomes was noticeably frustrated and got into it with Eric Bieniemy. I don't think there's that much to read into that. I think that competitive people argue and things like that happen. I don't think it's that uncommon for a player to be frustrated with a certain in-game scenario that a coach is calling. But I think the Chiefs should be more aggressive. I don't understand when Andy decides to be aggressive, it's great, and it seems to work really well. But then he kind of falls back into these shells sometimes where he's just like, no, we don't want to make any mistakes. Like, this is Alex Smith era Andy. And I don't know why he's playing like that when you have Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, and the argument's going to be that after the penalty, they got backed up to the, to 1st and 20, and then they had an incomplete pass. And then, so their only real option at that point was a Hail Mary. Okay, throw a Hail Mary. Put Jody Fortson on the field. Put Justin Watson on the field. Put MVS on the field. Get them downfield, and then throw a Hail Mary and let your tall guys jump up and go after it and see what happens. The worst that's going to happen is that the ball is going to get intercepted, and then you go and then they kneel it out and you go into the half. Like, I agree with you. I wouldn't read too much into the argument. I don't think that EB makes the call to run the ball without Andy Reid's blessing in the first place. I think that's why Andy came over and kind of just told Pat, like, let's get in the locker room. Let's not argue out here in front of everybody. And EB was just trying to say, listen, we're fine. We're fine. We're fine. You were wrong about that, EB. You guys weren't fine. You hadn't been fine the whole game. You may have liked the situation that you were sitting at, going into halftime up by 4 points. But listen, if you're up by 11 points, it's a lot better. If you're up by 7 points, it's a lot better. Why not take the shot? It wasn't a situation where if you go for it, you're at risk of the other team scoring. Like, that wasn't the situation you were in at that point. So might as well take the shot.
And do we have any other listener reactions to the Chiefs loss to the Colts, Kramer? It's from Alex Webb. So a tight end and a running back are our only weapons at this point from what I see. And Watson is looking like he needs more touches, but the wide receiver core is trash. We talked about it earlier in the show. I do think it's been under discussed, and I think it's something we should start paying more attention to. The Chiefs only having 2 wide receiver touchdowns through 3 games is worrisome. And I feel like you haven't seen anyone in this group of wide receivers really separate themselves. And Justin Watson is a fun player, and Patrick Mahomes almost hit him for another long touchdown today, but he just wasn't able to hang on to it. And if he catches that ball and is able to complete that pass, and it was a pretty nice play by the Colts defender, maybe we're having a different conversation right now. But it is worrisome that Justin Watson and McCole Hardman are your only two wide receiver touchdowns through 3 contests now. And I think that Clyde and Kelsey are the only guys that you can rely on. I don't know that, Justin Watson getting a serious uptick in snaps is really going to make that big of a difference. But at this point, I'd like to see him get more snaps than MVS, just because I just don't think that MVS is a playmaker.
Yeah, I believe in Watson over MVS at this point too. But at the same time, Watson had a couple of opportunities to make plays, not just on that touchdown where the safety came over and made a really nice play to break it up, but there was a couple of balls that he could have dug out. That one that Mahomes threw was on 3rd down that he wasn't able to dig out and make the reception on. Like, that was a crucial catch. And so if you want a bigger part of the offense, if you're a guy in Watson's position, then you got to come through when you get your opportunities. And he came through last week. He just didn't come through this week. We'll see what happens next week. But really, the road is open for Watson at this point to kind of pave his own path. He just has to go out there and make plays when he gets his opportunities and prove that he deserves more touches.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see it, Andy. Let's get Justin Watson more involved in the offense. I don't know how to say that handle, so I'm not going to try. Classic Chiefs going to crap this game down their legs. I mean, it feels like it's been a while since we've seen this bad of an all-around Chiefs performance. Maybe you want to point to the AFC Championship game in that second half against the Bengals. I totally get that, and I understand that. But it is worth mentioning that the Chiefs lost to the Colts a couple of years ago early on in the regular season. They went on and won the Super Bowl that year. I don't know what the Indy thing is. I don't know what the issue is here, but yeah, this was about as ugly of an all-around Chiefs performance as we've seen in a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, and it was classic Chiefs, but that's classic Chiefs as in pre-Patrick Mahomes era, right? And so, I mean, I'm not concerned about it moving forward, but they got to get some things fixed.
Yeah. From Kevin Cook, Nick Bolton was a beast. Yeah, we talked about it. I discussed this week on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network, I think we're about to see Nick Bolton take this thing to another level in the absence of Willie Gay. And he took steps towards doing that today. I think Nick Bolton's a star, and he looks like a star. Him being such a leader on this defense that has so many veteran players who are experienced and have seen a lot of things in the NFL, like Nick Bolton being a second-year guy, and so many of these Chiefs defenders looking to him as a leader type of player on that side of the ball, I think says a lot about him, and it's really impressive. And he was impressive again today. I think Nick Bolton is just going up and up right now, and I can't wait to see how he continues to improve.
I mean, he just has to keep making plays, and the more he does them on primetime games later in the year, the more national coverage he's going to get. And then once he gets that national coverage, he's going to start being regarded as the quality of player that he is, which I think is a top 5 middle linebacker in the NFL at this point.
Yeah, he was fantastic today. And last one before we get out of here, we are going to get killed by Tampa. Well, let's see. Tampa Bay's got a lot of issues themselves right now. They just signed Cole Beasley and activated him to the roster because they also do not have Mike Evans this week. They don't have Chris Godwin. They don't have Julio Jones. I think Russell Gage was questionable. They have no wide receivers. Their offensive line has totally fallen apart. Brady actually hasn't been good through 2 games, despite the fact that the Bucs are 2-0, and they've got the Packers today. So we'll see how that winds up shaking out for them. But I think Tampa is a little overrated right now. Tom Brady hasn't been very impressive through 2 games. Their defense has actually been playing really well, and is the reason that they've won both of those football games, not their offense.
Yeah, their defense is way better than their offense at this point, to be honest. They're currently down 6-3 to the Packers in the first quarter. And as long as Tom Brady keeps throwing tantrums every time he gets frustrated on the sideline like Cruella DeVille, then I think that the Chiefs can get in his head if they play like they did in the first half this week. I mean, the guy looks like he's literally wasting away into a skeleton, like in one of those Indiana Jones movies before our faces. I don't know what he did in the off season, but he doesn't look healthy. The man has had some work done, and I think that this is the cliff. like the cliff you talk about, all players fall off a cliff at some point. I think Tom Brady is inching closer and closer to his cliff with every single week. And we might, hopefully next week, we see our entire front four just push him off that cliff, just push him all the way off the cliff, and we can be done with it.
We'll see how it goes. We'll have plenty of coverage for you on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. So please make sure you check that out each and every day. Also, make sure you check out all of our brand new work at arrowheadpride.com. Just hired a bunch of new writers. So after this game, even though it wasn't exactly the win that we were looking for, we've got a ton of incredible content coming out for you guys all throughout today, all throughout tomorrow, all throughout this entire week as we move forward and move on to the Chiefs' next opponent. Please make sure you follow Rocky on Twitter at Rocky Magana. I'm Steven Serda. That's where you can find me. Please follow our guy Kramer at Kramer Talks. And make sure if you're listening on the podcast, please make sure that you stick around immediately following us. We will have all the Chiefs post-game press conferences for you. Again, I'm Steven Serda. He's Rocky Magana. We'll talk to you guys later this week.